Greetings, comrades. Two quick announcements. Tomorrow night, that is Sunday, I'm playing with a band called the Jagged Dogs at Volks Bar in Brighton on the seafront. Not sure exactly what time, but probably kind of early evening. So if you're in the area, you want to see some punk rock, come down. I'll be playing bass. A friend of mine's playing guitar. We're filling in for some members of his uncle's band, which are missing. Secondly, I plan to create 14 videos next week. I don't have a lot to do. I'll have access to a computer. So you're going to see some Marxism explained, some history of revolutionary socialism, etc., etc., and catching up on some news stories and things like that. Now, this is another response to a MRN2's video. He's talking about the Wall Street occupation. And towards the end of the video, he criticises kind of the liberal approach to resistance to the police and some of the kind of hippie-esque tactics that they're using. Now, I agree with all of this, but my kind of warning is don't turn to kind of premature violence towards the police too often, even in self-defense. Now, the reason I say this is the movement is still quite young. It's yet to really capture the public's imagination, partly because the propaganda machines of the American media are obviously deliberately kind of ignoring it as much as they can in favour of, for example, the Tea Party, who are basically part of the establishment. It's almost like the American equivalent of the Cultural Revolution. You know, it's a way for the Republican right to kind of reassert itself. And they'll be throwing all kinds of slurs about these people are communists, anarchists, hippies, wasters, thugs, you know, get a job, you stinking hippie, etc., etc. But we're starting to see, you know, kind of a growth of public interest, especially especially interest from the workers. Unions are coming out in support of what's going on. You know, various kind of left parties are taking an interest and trying to get involved. So yeah, people are looking into it, but it's, like I say, it's still in the early stages. People aren't really sure what it's about, because the movement has yet to properly find its voice, to properly find its program or its position. It's not a homogenous union, not a homogenous movement. There's lots of different stuff going on. At this point, it's just a forum for debate. Now, I'm not particularly a fan of Gandhi, but I can see the merit in Gandhi's tactics. I mean, basically, he did not use peace. He used violence, but, you know, he let the violence happen to his followers, or he advised them to let them experience that violence, and use the outrage of the public as kind of a driving force. Now, as a long-term tactic, I of course would not advocate this in America, but for the time being it is sufficient. Just to garner sympathy for the movement. You know, people are seeing, you know, these are a lot of young people, pretty harmless, just waving some placards about being maced, being beaten, mass arrests. You know, it's like some fucking Tiananmen Square shit right there. And, you know, people are starting to wonder, well, you know, what is the real nature of the police and the state? You know, what's going on here? And it's opening minds. Now, of course, the time will come when insurrection is possible, and in fact impossible to prevent on the part of whatever people come towards leading this movement. For the time being, you know, people got to sit tight. You know, just civil disobedience will do the job for the time being, of getting attention, of getting sympathy, and in the meantime, you know, the people of the movement got to come up with a clear program, a clear position that people can get behind, which is going to take a bit of time. But like I say, you know, too much, you know, any violence will be blown out of proportion, and these people will be painted as communists or, you know, violent criminals and things like that. And we don't need that right now, you know. So my kind of message is, I know I made this video kind of arguing against pacifism, and I believe that in any kind of revolutionary movement, a great part of it will be just civil disobedience and pacifism. And for the time being, that's an okay way to go. I mean, if you look at what was going on in Greece, by the time violence actually occurred, the support was massive. It was incredibly huge. And people's sympathies were drawn to it. And then some kind of a fight back could begin. Obviously, it's still a work in progress. It wasn't entirely successful. But, it was... people are behind it. The people of Greece support that. And that's what we need for America as well. And perhaps in Britain when it occurs too. So, kind of my message is, I agree with all the messages in his videos, but, don't move too quickly towards any kind of armed resistance. Because take, for example, what happened in Britain with the student protests. Hundreds of thousands of people marched against, I believe it was the raising tuition fees and other kind of austerity measures. And a very small percentage of, kind of black blockers smashed up some buildings and stuff and got kettled. And that was all the media looked at it. So for the ordinary person who isn't quite tuned into the fact that these are propaganda machines, that was the truth. That, this small minority of individuals who turned to violence at a premature period represented the entire movement. If you look at the history of, for example, the October Revolution and the periods between the February Revolution and the October Revolution, the Bolsheviks were actually trying their hardest not to get the people to rebel violently, to keep it to, even not to do that much protesting. They were waiting for the right time. They were waiting for the moment when it could not be stopped and could not be put down. They were stoking the fires. They were agitating, for people to overthrow the government. But they wanted to do it at the right time when they knew that they'd be able to have this revolution and it would not be crushed. So it's all about waiting for the right time. Stoke the fires, but wait for the optimum moment. And that's what I say to these people. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of liberalism, there's going to be a lot of hippies and opportunists and posers. And you've got to wait for the working people to kind of see past the crap, to see through all this hippie bullshit that's being thrown around. But, that requires an incubation period. It requires the movement to kind of grow, for debates to happen, for arguments to win or lose. So it's going to take some time. So, but again, to Maoist Rebel News too, great videos as always very interesting, so keep up the good work. Red salutes, comrades.